This is the President McCormack Podcast with your host, Mark McCormack.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome my friend on the podcast, Jarom Iacono.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here.
We've been chatting for like half an hour, but
Yeah, I know.
but all the fun stuff that's going on. So Jarom, what's it like being Jarom?
Ooh, boy, it is, man, that's a dangerous question, I guess. It's amazing. Yeah, I get to build homes, get to build a business, and I get to do that with the person that I love most. So,
Yeah. Which is?
my wife. Myself.
Yeah, myself. Yeah, exactly. I'm in my truck all day talking to people. I love it.
I pull up a big mirror and we have a great time.
I love that. That's funny. So one of the cool things that we share is we're both in the We Are the They group.
Yeah.
We also live 2 houses apart, which is wild. And but the We Are the They group, so you're actually in the first leadership group and I'm in the second. And so people kind of understand the dynamic there. You're actually doing things basically 6 months ahead of us.
Right. Yeah.
And so what was the last activity you guys did? Was it Arizona?
It was Arizona. Jumped out of an airplane. We did some paintballing. We did like some serious masterminding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you like the group?
You know, that is loaded. I love the group because of the truth that it provides.
Yeah.
You know, call it a vessel, call it a container, call it whatever you want. Like there's a place where, you know, men don't often get to go to, you know, because of societal reasons or they're afraid of it, you know, or cultural. They've been told their whole lives, you know, to avoid, you know, emotion. And so you get all these men that are like just coming out of these dark places of their lives and sharing things. You know, we had a speaker in one Ludus, not one, many. It's amazing. And I've joked with Jimmy about it. I like, first time I asked Jimmy, like, was that staged? Like, did you guys plan on him coming up and sharing that? And Jimmy's like, no, man, like, look at my text messages between the two of us. And person was like, hey, I've got this that I want to speak on. Is there a particular topic that you'd like me to discuss? And Jimmy's like, no, man, speak from your heart.
Yeah.
And Jimmy knows, like, you're going to come into this place and it's such an amazing energy that it just opens up for whatever you need to. And what happens is a lot of those men, you know, including myself, come to this place with all these other men and sharing from a very vulnerable space, sharing secrets that are now no longer secrets. And it's like, okay, it's out there and now I can work on it. And this whole essence of, well, I want to become a better man.
Yeah.
I want to become a better human being. I want to become a better husband. I want to become a better father, a better friend, a better associate, a better businessman, a better leader. We Are the They is like 10xing that.
Yeah. The thing I found is interesting is I was a little resistant to come into the group. I don't know if you've ever heard my story, right? But my buddies were trying to get me in, Max and Nick, right? And I even talked to Jimmy. Jimmy brought this up when we were in Iceland, right? Where I was just like, yeah, bro, I'm not going to join your group. I don't need to do this kind of crap. Like, I'm motivated. I've got my life together. Like, I got all these things, right? And then about an hour later, I was convinced. So then I wired in my money, right? And I was like, the one thing with it is I knew I was going to be all in, right? The second I joined, it was like, I'm just going to be all in. I'm going to do everything. I don't care. Tell me what you want done. I'll just keep on doing it. And I think it was down in Moab where I was like, man, there's 50 dudes down here, plus a little bit of staff. You know, we're 54, 55 guys down here. Because the staff, even though they work for Jimmy, they do participate, and Jimmy allows them to participate, which is awesome. You know, then we've got to know all these, you know, just more and more brothers. And it's such an interesting opportunity to take in life is to join a group like this and then go all in. Because like what you're saying, there's opportunities to be vulnerable. There's opportunities to be strong. There's opportunities to take advice. There's opportunities to give advice. And then there's like this massive layer of fun. And I've noticed so many guys be able to kind of start leaning into the group now and really starting to, I want to say it's like these massive like nuclear changes that people are having. They're almost all micro. That's probably how all change happens anyways, right? We have these little micro decisions we start making and we kind of just start moving towards true north. And I think with your group, you probably feel it more than me because we're about 6, 7, 8 months in right now. But it's like you can see dudes starting to kind of flow towards goals and like being a better husband and being a better father. I mean, do you see that in your group? Do you see guys really molding, all kind of hitting the same drum to the same beat?
You know, that I'm so glad you asked that. Because I just had an experience, this last one, where there's a lot of newbies, right, in the group, and the whole experience, you know, when you first join the group, is you think it's kind of like that, like you said, like I don't need to be fixed. I'm good. Like life's good, business is good. You know, I've been grinding for X amount of years, and now I'm starting to see it, and things are great. Like, why do I need to go and join this group? And I don't know, maybe you're unfamiliar with coaching and business coaching and its influence, and really don't see the benefit. But you join into this group, and it's like, okay, you know, what are my ROIs? And okay, I'll be a better man, like by doing some adventurous stuff. Like, okay, I can see that. And when you hear a lot of guys like their flex or their wins, right? I got this house, I got this car, I got this bank account. Like I have all these things and they're great. Yeah, and that's great, man. Like accomplishments are awesome. They're solid. Never be ashamed of them. You know, but ask yourself, is that really what you're focused on? You know, is that where you find love? Is that where you feel acceptance? Is that where it's at? And you start realizing, like, Jimmy Rex has a plethora of knowledge, and let's just you know, get it out there. He doesn't lack the drive. So I think that, you know, some point in time you got to ask yourself, like, what is Jimmy's motive? And because this guy he'd go out there and make billions, and it's probably something that's in his goal setting, right? But right now it's evident that it's not about the money, and it's not about the cars, you know, or the glitz and the glam. Like it's about the connectivity, you know, and it's about feeling alive. And when you get around a group of men and it's like, oh man, all those things that I esteem to be I don't need to be those. I was trying to be those for other people, and I just get to be me here. What? Okay, this is weird. And then the next Ludus or the next call, you know, or the next get together, you're like, what? It is true. I get to be me. And you start to feel this sense of like, I can be me, and I don't need to be you. And I don't need to have this or have that to make you love me. Or I don't have to have all these status things to go, he's really got it. He's there. Like, for me, the real flex now, and this is what I'm definitely leaning into. Like, the real flex is, you know, how much time do I feel I can sit comfortably with myself, whether it's in the mirror, whether it's in a conversation. Like, how much truth? Like, what is truth? Right? And what is my truth? And how can I lean into that to really like go home and at the end of the day, like high five myself, be like, you did it, man. and I wouldn't take anything back about today. You were asked things, you were presented with things, and you responded with your truth. And that's where some of the guys coming into these new guys coming into it, you know, it now gives us an opportunity to be, you know, compassionate to that. Like, yeah, man, that's great. That's phenomenal. I'm so glad that you did that. And that's amazing. And then be an example. Like, you don't have to go where I'm going. Go wherever you want to go. But I get a lot out of where I'm at in my life through the people that I can connect with and listen to what they're doing in their lives, but more whether or not it's something I resonate with.
Yeah.
You know?
One thing I've noticed that I think we're very similar in is how important our relationships with our wives are. You know, and how those are we were kind of talking earlier, and one of the things I've thought about, my wife says it all the time, is that you're going to fall in love with 3 or 4 people in your life, right? You just want to make sure that your spouse has all 3 or 4 of those, you know, because you have different stages, you know. You married young?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same as me. I got married at like 22. I turned 23 a couple months later.
It was like my escape.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah. That was like my escape from Alcatraz, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, tell me more about that. Why do you feel that way?
You know, I'm like this, I feel like I'm like this romantic at heart. You know, my last name's Italian, but I've done the DNA and I'm 3%.
Right.
You know, my grandfather's from Italy. I'm still 3%. But I just have this romantic heart. And when I watched, you know, my parents and the struggles that they went through, I just knew something had to be better. My friends I experienced a really rough middle school, high school years, and not necessarily because of, you know, everyone else's influence, but just because of the way that I reacted to it.
Yeah.
And man, I went down the road quite a ways, you know, where a lot of my friends, you know, they didn't recover, and they not only didn't recover, but, you know, they're no longer with us, and siblings that I've actually experienced that same thing with. I just recently lost a sister to drugs that led to this and led to that, and eventually it took her life. And it was really, you know, it was a good eye opener for me. But for me, there were things that I didn't want to be. And you know, my wife similarly, you know, I could talk all day about some of the things that she's experienced. So when the two of us met, it was like, that's not what we want. We want this. And she's had this special drive for, you know, she's very corporate. Has a very, you know, she's that very corporate kind of mindset. Like, I'm driven to do a lot of things in business. I have a lot of value that I can give there. And so naturally, you know, that's what she leaned into. And we're both there, very hard workers, you know, grew up very hard workers. And she wanted to go to school. I wanted to go to school, and we wanted to start a life as quickly as possible and just start, you know, grinding and crushing life.
Yeah.
Right. And then, you know, life has a tendency to crush back, and, you know, it did many times.
How old are you guys when you got married?
So I was 22 and she was 20, and we met each other. I was a senior in high school and she was a sophomore. Nice. And it was one of those things. Like the way that I would describe it is, you know, in the movies where they show this big crowd of people, and, you know, amongst the crowd, there's like this one individual who's glowing, usually like they're like golden.
Yeah.
That was Jess. Like I knew it the minute I saw her. You know, now I'm like conflicted with all these other issues that I've kind of, habits and things that I've created, and emotional, you know, immaturities, and went through my entire senior year, dating her, and we broke up and dated other people off and on for 4 years. And at the end of 4 years, it was, this is the person that I need to stop this, like this dancing away from this obvious. It's obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you felt so confounded by what you knew life was going to experience with this person, and what life's experience would be like with this person. And it was, that's where I need to go. That's what I need to be. And I'm going to do everything. I'm determined to be that person, and to grow out of some of these niches that I got myself into.
Yeah.
So, we got engaged and we got married, and, quickly started into our careers. And she graduated, she graduated top of her class, and I graduated with a 2-year degree. And I didn't graduate. I looked at the generals. All I had left were generals. And I was making really good money, side hustles and construction. I was making really good money. And, my dad was paying me half of what he was paying some of his other guys, but I was still making great money out of that, because I was finding ways to make money. I was not cutting corners, but I was just, I was in my 20s. So I was able to grind all day and all night. I'd get up and I would go and take 2 classes in the morning. I'd get out to the campus there, and I'd get into 2 classes, and then I'd get out onto a job site. One of my math professor, trigonometry professor in college, had 2 framing crews that his sons ran. And he asked me one day if I wanted to join one of the framing crews. And I thought, well, it's construction management that I was in. And
yeah. This
would be great. Construction management, learn how to frame. My dad started in framing, and I'm meant to walk my dad's path. That was my mindset at that time. And
is he a general contractor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And started a company in his 20s, 30s and 40s, and 40 some odd years later, decided to retire and move down to St. George. But for my entire life, and my siblings, it was, you guys are going to go work on the job site every single spare moment you have. Every Saturday morning early. It wasn't a sleep in, or hey, we got to go and hang out with friends today with the day off. It was, you got to get out to the job site and break all the concrete ties. Learned how to swing a hammer, and I got really good at that, and it made me strong in sports. I learned how to keep a job nice and clean. It was always, my dad was always very poignant about that. It was important to him to keep the job site clean, because others are going to see that, and they're going to model that same image. Whether they do it typically or not, they're going to know that on my dad's job site, that's the standard. And I started seeing that and applying that to other areas of my life, and a lot of really good lessons of working with my dad on the job site. Took those into the start of my career. I joined this framing crew. It got me through school. My dad didn't want me to, it seemed as though he didn't want me to work with him. Mm-hmm. That's kind of my dad's way, He's not going to come in and ask you. It's, you can kind of push your way in. And that's kind of what I did. After a while, I ran my own framing crew, ran theirs. I was their lead foreman for a while, and then had my own framing crew for a short bit, and decided I wanted to get my GC license and partner with my dad. And that's what I did. I had to kind of, muscle my way in there, because he was begrudgingly about it, and got in there, and I felt, this is great. I'm like a partner with my dad in his business, and father, son, and we're gonna take over the construction industry. And we ramped up business like 3, 4, 5 times what he had ever done.
Yeah.
And it was great. We get the opportunity to attend this summit down at the Salt Lake County Library, where they brought in the head leading economists, the U of U, the Kim Gardner Institute, and Zions Bank, and they all spoke to us about what was about to come. And I was sitting next to 2 of the biggest builders at the time. One of them is back in building. The other one left the state. But the funny conversations that we were having after this thing concluded inside the conference hall, we went back out and they served us lunch, and I'm sitting down. These 2 builders are sitting next to us. We'd actually shared model homes in the same subdivisions with them, so I knew them personally, and I would always peek in and like chat with their project managers, and we'd have fun with each other. So I got to know them, and they started in about this conversation that was happening with these economists. And one of them said, "Those guys are crazy. I'm going to have my biggest year yet. What we're slated to do this year." And the other one comes in and he's like, "Yeah, that was nuts. There's no way. I cannot see that happening." This was end of 2007.
Yeah.
And I'm young, right? Just helped my dad get to this level that, I felt like he was raking. Like, this is great. And, we weren't nearly as many homes as these other builders, but it was great.
Yeah.
Anybody could have jumped in to be a builder in 2005 and 6.
Yeah.
But I said, "Yeah, those guys are nuts." I had taken really good notes in it, though. For me, for a note taker that could use some help in those skills, like I felt like I took really good notes. But I said to the guys, I said, "Yeah, that is nuts. We're going to have our best year yet too. Like, there's no way that's going to happen." My dad was kind of quiet. He didn't say much. He's experienced the 90s. He's experienced the 80s, recession after recession. And there was something about it that, my dad was kind of like, that's kind of eerie. Like, we're on repeat, and we're going to go through a rinse cycle too. And so I took those notes home. My wife at the time, she was working for a phenomenal company. And I had kind of wrangled her in part-time to help us out with the books. And I had just built a home for us, a really awesome house, to have in your early 20s. That was a lot of fun, and to experience that. And she was doing really good in her career, and brought her in, and I was sharing with her some of the notes, and she didn't say much, but she goes back and she builds this model out of my notes. She's like, "Hey, you guys, I built this model for this forecast for the next 2 years based on these notes, and I just wanted to share it with you." Sits my dad and I down in the office one day, and we're going over these notes, and my dad goes, "Yep, I thought so." And she goes, "So if what they say is true, like we're going to be in a foreclosure situation, like maybe even a bankruptcy if we don't do something now." And that kind of stopped me in my tracks,
I bet that was shocking, right?
Yeah, I really, really felt, the blood curdling kind of essence from that. And it was serious. And so we were very preemptive in that. We started into a short sale scenario. We started revisiting every single client we had. We had an agent that had come in and had helped us out and had put together a lot of straw buyers, unbeknownst to us. My dad was very against that. We found that we had several straw buyers, and straw buyer is someone that is made up basically just to create a contract. There were thousands of those throughout the state alone, thousands of those. I'd say maybe even tens of thousands.
Yeah.
Just throw somebody's name on the loan and we'll give you money. Throw someone's name on the contract. We'll give you money. And And they were doing that left and right. So we had to weed those ones out, and then we had to go back to the banks. We had to go back to a lot of our sub trades and suppliers. A lot of fun stories that came from that.
Yeah.
But the end game was we didn't foreclose on anything. We carried some notes back. Jessie and I had built our second home, which was a gorgeous home. We had our first one almost paid off entirely and rolled all that equity into this next one, which was worth twice as much. And the equity was, or the mortgage on it was smaller than our first home. So we thought we were doing great. But, you know, after this whole short sale and carrying these notes, we had to dig ourselves out. So we had to mortgage our equity. And that hurt. Lost, Jessie and I ended up walking away from almost $400,000. And, you know, at the time, you're in your 20s and, you know, you're grinding with the best tools that you know how. You know, you're, it was tough. It was painful. You know, my dad lost quite a bit more, and you know, we kind of took our lickings, and Jessie's job was as strong as ever. They had actually just brought her in to train on PeopleSoft, and she got so good at it that she started writing code for her company, and they trained her so well that they actually had her go out to the rest of the company throughout the country and train on it. Well, then other businesses heard about it, and they would send their members, their corporate members, to do trainings with Jessie in certain parts of the country. And one of them was, one of the companies was the NFL. And
oh, cool.
and this was 2008, where she came back from a trip and she goes, hey, one of the most amazing things happened. You know, I just got back from Pittsburgh and the NFL was in this training with us, and they want to recruit me to go and work for the NFL. And I'm like, wow, damn, I could be a stay-at-home dad, and I'm not doing a damn thing right now. You know, there's not a single home being built right now. They're all being torn down. Like this whole economy is a mess. Yeah. Construction, there was nothing. And I thought, yeah, maybe we can move to Pittsburgh and I'll figure out something there when we get there. And we didn't feel right about it, you know, so she passed on the job, and I got my framing crew back together. And we actually were experts in like high-end finishing, high-end framing. With a math professor as our boss, there wasn't anything we couldn't figure out. Yeah. You know, we calculate everything. Most of the time we do it longhand. Half of the studs and 2x12s on the job had, you know,
handwritten
equations on them while we were trying to figure everything out. And so these jobs, these networks that we had built, they all came back. You know, well, the rich were building at this time. They're taking full advantage of this. And so a lot of it was out of state. We went to Jackson Hole for a long while, and it was so depressing because, you know, at this time, my second child is due, and I'm up in Jackson Hole one day, and I call up Jessie after work, and super cold. It's the middle of the winter, and Jackson Hole, you know, if you know Jackson Hole, it's not Salt Lake or Park City. It's not like anything else in Utah. It's negative 36 during the day, and that's without wind. And the locals are out working, so you better get out there too. And so it's just tough. It was really, really tough conditions. And I got back, and Jessie was telling me about how she snow shoveling the driveway, and she's due in a couple of weeks. And I'm like, I just got to finish this job up and this weekend up, and then I'm going to take a couple weeks off with Jessie. And she starts passing out on the phone. And I call up my dad, or I call up my mom, I call up her dad, ask them to race over to the house. They get over there, and sure enough, she was dehydrated. So they take her to the ER, and they get her on some IVs. And I just thought, yeah, this ain't worth it.
Yeah.
Went back and told my guys, I'm not doing it anymore, guys. I'm done. I'm going to go back to Salt Lake. I don't care what it takes. I will sweep streets, is what I told them. Yeah. I'll make it work in Salt Lake no matter what. I'm not going to be away from my family anymore. And that was kind of my burn the ships moment, you know, like I'm going all in, and there's nothing that will stop me. I don't care how tough it gets in Salt Lake, I'll make it work. And that was the beginning of me coming back. I had an epiphany moment where my son turning 5, kind of have that, 4 years old conversation, and you realize in a moment that, wait a minute, he's conversing back.
Yeah.
Like this life-changing moment for a father, for a man, where you recognize that you're going to have something for the rest of your life with this young human being right here is going to grow, and this relationship that you have, how powerful that relationship can be, and what I didn't have with my dad. Something that is kind of, it's been it's a tough pill to swallow. I love my dad. Would have been nice.
Was he upset that you moved on?
I went to him one day, after I made the decision, I went to him one day and I confronted him. He was in the middle of something and asked him to come over to the truck, and it was this, I'm like, Dad, I really need to talk to you. And he comes over and I said, hey, so just so you know, I have completely rebuilt the company. We have financing. We have spec financing. I've been building homes, and all of our creditors, all of our suppliers, all of our subs that we used back in the day, I'm still using. Great relationships. Everything's great. He had kind of stepped away, and he'd taken on this church calling of finishing out the Oker Mountain Temple for the stake that he was involved with. And I had caught him on the temple grounds where I was like, hey, Dad, I need you to come over here. And so finally, I confessed to him, this is what I'm doing. And I've already got my company name. I've already started it, and I'm doing my own thing now, Dad. And he said, well, good luck. I go, and then walked off. And I'll never forget that, because in that moment, I knew that the decision that I had made was right.
Yeah.
Because I will do something different. And I think that, not to shame my dad, he's such a great man. And he did the best with what he knew.
Yeah.
Just like you or I, doing the best with what we knew. And I think that it's a duty that we have to be better than them, a duty they had to be better than theirs. And I hope that my children can turn around and say, yeah, Dad, that was great. Thank you. Let me take the baton. I think I can run this a little bit faster, or I can do better at this. And I hope they do. It's a fresh new perspective, and it was a fresh perspective that I really wanted to explore. And I felt like working with my dad, it was one that I could only explore his perspective.
Right.
And it caused some resentment, and I didn't want to have that. So, ultimately leaving him, that was, there are some families that do business together, and I admire that. Yeah. I'm sure they have their challenges, I definitely admire it, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't for us. And,
is the relationship good now with your dad?
Yeah, it's distant. Yeah, it's
since
distant.
That day kind of thing, or?
Yeah, it's been a, I've taken some time, I didn't intentionally create any physical distance, but they moved to St. George, and I just needed to really explore where I was really at, and I've been doing that for the last little bit, and re-inviting things in and wanting to do it, in a way that's that's more pure and intentional and not forced.
Right.
So yeah, seeing where that goes. Yeah,
that's good. Does Jessie have a good relationship with him?
She does. Similar. In fact, he used her for most of our marriage to as a mouthpiece to my ear.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was the best way that he knew how. Right, like it was a great tool that he started to see. Hey, I can really interact with my son. I can let him hear how I really want to feel, because otherwise maybe I never chose to and I say use, that's kind of a harsh word. It wasn't like use in a bad way, but I utilize Jessie's mouthpiece so that my son can hear how I feel, because I have a hard time doing it in front of him.
Right.
And I resented that for a while. Like I did not like the fact that he and I couldn't have a conversation, and I tried. I really did. You know, as a young boy, as a young man, now as a father, like I really tried to like be vulnerable. Like, Dad, this is how I feel. Dad, I'm standing right here. I just want to have a conversation with you. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Yeah. I've never had this. I know you haven't had that example either, but like, let's try. Let's try this out. And yeah, just it would fall flat. But then as I got older, I started to realize that was his way of connecting to me. And so it'd be like, I'd sit Jessie down and I'm like, hey, did my dad call you today? Yeah, what did he say? Yeah. And, it'd almost feel like he was talking through her to me.
Yeah.
And, there were times where it felt great. And there were times where I could really feel like Jessie was taking on some of that, like pain, and it wasn't good. And so by us creating that distance, it didn't really alter the fact that my dad did see that he really wanted to connect with me, and it was easier for him to do that with her. And even as we built our business, he would call her up to talk to her about certain things with religion that he wanted for us, and certain things just about life. But, Jessie's very smart, and he learned that while she was working with us. And so he would constantly call her for advice. Yeah. And she loved that. She loved that because it wasn't something that she got to experience as much with her dad. He was inebriated most of the time that she was awake. Yeah. So, her interactions.
Jesse's dad?
What's that?
Is Jesse's dad passed on? Is he still here?
Yeah, he passed away about 5.5 years ago. Yeah. So, and that came with, dozens of challenges, and, experiencing that part of our lives. We got to revisit it, because it wasn't just a simple passing. It was a very tough one. Mm-hmm. And one that you watch how alcohol can slowly poison somebody's view of the world, poison their brain and rot that function out. So to have to watch that was really tough. Watch my sister's death was tough. Heroin is it's a big deal, but to watch her battle was like even a bigger deal. She'd been thrown out of a car, crushed her, face through the windshield, in a rollover, in a drunk driving accident. She'd been beaten to within inches of her life by one of Utah's most wanted. It was her boyfriend. OD after OD after OD, which, you OD for a lot of people, they don't survive it. In and out of Orange County, lockup. Yeah. The California prison system, she spent dozens of times there. Maybe that's a little exaggerative, but she spent a lot of time in jail, and a lot of time in areas that, a lot of people don't recover from. So to see her live into her 40s that way, when I joined We Are the They, it was that first ludus. Like 2 days before that, she passed away.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I took that in, and it was amazing because there were some men that had experienced similarities, and we got to share some of those. It was neat. Yeah.
So are you older than her?
No, she's almost 4 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I have two older siblings, sisters that are twins, and very energetic, very positive influences in my life.
So 3 older sisters?
3 older sisters and 1 younger brother.
1 younger brother. Cool. The older sister's protective of you?
No. Curious. Okay. Yeah, I think they're curious. They're very protective. I guess one of my sisters is very protective of my younger brother, and he hates that. Trav, if you're listening, I got you back, bud.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're very very successful children, right? Like they were very studious, very driven in their careers, hard workers. One of them's a single mother. So, I've been witness to the challenges that she's faced, and been able to see some of the triumphs that she's gone through, and have a lot of empathy for single mothers. Having, been able to see what she's gone through, and then my oldest, who I guess she's the one who came out first. She is, she's got a few children of her own, and runs a team for a health equity firm.
Oh, really?
So,
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you're talking about your sisters. I've only got one. I've got a little sister. So she's kind of the caboose of the family. And I was talking to my mom earlier, and I was supposed to have an older sister, but she died in the womb at like 4.5 months or 5 months or something like that. I always wondered what it would be like to have older sisters. Because my son gets to experience an older sister and a younger sister. Yeah. And they beat his A all the time.
My sister who passed away, she used to beat on me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, when I hit my growth spurts, I could fight back. And then she'd hit a growth spurt, being 4 years. But we got to a point where the two of us were like best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. We hung out every weekend. Any chance that we could get out of high school, we hung out a lot.
How old is she when she got into drugs?
Oh, she was in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was in high school, and then I started, and then she got pregnant and had her baby, and she was on her own for a long while. And, it was a good place for me and my friends to kind of go and crash. And she wasn't using like that. She had been using heroin for maybe the last 10 years of her life, but she had dabbled in maybe that and some other big drugs in her 30s and her 20s. But while her and I spent some time together, she may have a drink or two and maybe some smaller recreational use drugs. But she was so much fun. My friends loved her too, so we'd always go over there and we'd hang out with her. And while my friends are hanging out and doing their thing, I just go and sit back in the room with her and her little daughter, and we just chat. And those were really good moments.
So do you still get to see your niece?
I still get to see my niece. Yeah.
How old is she now?
She is 26.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Is her life good?
Yeah. There's challenges, but I think it's due to trauma, and this story that she tells herself. It's tough to watch children go through that and then have to carry on this identity, this outlook on life, and you try to help that, but it's tough. She's really close with my oldest sister and their daughter. She spends a lot of time with them and close in age, and my oldest sister, she has children that are having children,
right?
So they're quite a bit older than me, 7, 8 years older than me, So they got a big jump on life. Jessie and I waited 5 years before we started having children.
We did the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say, think about this. Yeah, so Brea's 13, and I'm in my 18th and a half year of marriage. So we would almost bang on 5 years before we had him.
Yeah.
I wanted to get done with college.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of had one thing I've always been really good at in my life is knowing how much pressure I can handle. And I always just told my wife, I'm like, I don't think I can handle having a kid while I'm in college, because I worked full-time, went to college full-time, had a wife full-time. You know, back then I had church callings and everything going on, right? Plus trying to find a little bit of time for me. It's like, I just knew we needed to wait. So we literally got pregnant, right after I graduated college. And then, which was awesome. Having kids is a blast. Yeah. It's an adventure.
Yeah, it is. It completely changes things. Yeah. You know, we thought that that's a very big understatement. Yeah. But our first child was a eye opener. You know, and you find out 5 months in utero that there's problems, and baby might not make it, and well, we think it's this. It's like, okay, start ruling out all these things that would have otherwise been possible. Yeah. And start accepting things. And I look back and I'm like, yeah, don't listen to them. Don't listen to them. You know, and you know, for me, I've always been a planner, like a plan ahead. Like I want to visualize. I'm a very visual person. Yeah. And I can see that. I have a great imagination. Like to be able to see a home be built from start to finish, I can see that before I even start working on the blueprints. Yeah. And so I really saw certain things like, hey, we're going to have kids. Let's start having kids. It's not that easy. It wasn't that easy for us. Yeah. And it took a while. And then when we found out that we were pregnant, 5 months in, we found out there's even more challenges. And, you know, we delivered at the U of U, and Jessie got to see Ethan for about 15 minutes before they wheeled him down to primaries in a Life Flight incubator. Life Flight team came in.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Packaged Ethan up in that little incubator.
What was going on with him?
Completely housed. He was born with a tumor.
Okay.
And at first they thought it was spina bifida. So, you know, spina bifida is not, it's not a fun one to deal with. You know, a lot of challenges, you know, and spina bifida is, it's from what I learned was a lot of it was genetics. And so I'm looking at it and I'm like, is there something, and maybe if there is something, that I can reach out to somebody and like find out what is it that I'll need to expect. You know, I was young and less accepting of the moments that were happening. and so, yeah, that was when the doctors say something, don't go home and look it up on the internet. You know, that give yourself, be patient. Yeah. Things will work out. You know, that type of philosophy, and I didn't, and it really, I got into my head. But Jessie had a completely different feeling. You know, she lived a lot in faith, and was very calm, at least on the outside. I think that on the inside there was still, you know, the pain and the agony and the questions. And anyway, so he ended up a specialist at the U of U caught the charts. You know, I like to get dramatic around it because I like to think it was just this 1 in a million chance and we beat them, right? And, yeah. But what had happened was this specialist at the U, every month he picks a hospital in the valley to travel out to and to see, you know, all of their charts. And just so happened he had hit ours and was looking through this one, and he said, hey, you know, I don't think that it's spina bifida, but it could be this, and this is even more rare. Let's just start looking at things. I think, there's a good chance he has Down syndrome and some other things, but I think it's this. And so we got into it. He brought us up to the U and he says, I want you guys to come up to the U every week. Every week we're going to do a sonogram and we're going to really try to look into this thing a little closer and plan ahead for that. And so we did. And he came back and he said in one visit, he said, I'm pretty certain that this is a tumor. It's called sacral coccygeal teratoma. And it's basically the stem cells that we have in our body, the stem cell that is responsible for creating the spine, spinal column. It didn't stop creating. After the spinal column was done, it just kept growing, different muscular tissue, lung tissue, bone tissue, just kept growing. And it grew into his pelvic area, grew into, stretched out his bladder, stretched out his ureters, stretched out his colon, his anus, like stretched out everything that's growing, and all these other things are trying to develop.
Right.
It's like stretching them out and like trying to make room for itself. And the best scenario is it grows outside, right? Just kind of influences the skin. But this was growing into the pelvic. Half of it was growing into the pelvic area and the other half outside. So you could see it when he was born. He had this big bump and, sweetest smile ever. And, he had Jessie's dimples and, he's kicking around and he's got this bump on his tailbone. And I was just enamored. Well, they package him up and they take him down, and then he was supposed to operate on him after a few days, let him kind of recover from the birth, and Jessie's delivery was an emergency delivery. She went into labor premature. They were going to induce her, and she kind of went into labor naturally. And we got up to the hospital during a whiteout snowstorm. Took us 2.5 hours from Jordan Valley to the U of U. And she was in labor the whole time. Ended up, they got her into her room and she was dilated to a 9 naturally without anything. Yeah. I'm in the ambulance, that they wouldn't let me sit in the back with her, which was really strange. I guess in the snowstorm, they needed me to be buckled in. Oh, so
rules are rules.
I'm sitting in here, I'm buckled in, the driver's, focusing on the road. And this guy is in the back seat while Jessie's yelling at him and screaming and going through this. Right. And I'm like, I need to get back there. And I'm saying this in my mind, why am I not back there? Why can't I get back there? And I'm like getting mad, right? And the driver looks over and he goes, hey, is everything all right? And I was like, no, nothing's all right. Watch the road. You can hear my wife. I should be back there. Yeah, I'm sorry, rules are rules, type of deal. And 2.5 hours later, we get to the U. They get us up there. They get Jessie her spinal, and they deliver the baby, and we get down to primaries after everything's done. I'm sitting down at primaries visiting with the doctors, and they come in and said, hey, we're slammed right now. We have to do the surgery today. And I'm like, oh, okay. Is that a bad thing? Well, yeah, the baby's just gone through all this trauma of the birth, and we need him to get his strength back. And but we're going to bring in a few surgeons for this. We're going to bring in a urologist. We're going to bring in, this surgeon and this surgeon. And we think that it might be 3.5 hours. And so I said, okay, is there anything that you want to know before we go in through the surgery? And I said, yeah, this might sound morbid, but I've spent now the last 4 months with this thing in my head that there's something trying to resist my son from living. And if you don't mind, I'd like to see it. I'd like to stare at it face to face after surgery. And just, for me, in my heart, I just wanted to be, you didn't win.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like in that stubborn state, right? Like I look back at it and it's like, it wasn't about winning or losing, and it was just about the appreciation and the tool that it was to teach you. But yeah, 5.5 hours later, he comes into the waiting room, brings in this Tupperware bowl, sits down with me and wasn't gloomy or somber. So I was like watching body language, trying to read body language and everything, okay, what's he going to tell me? What's going to happen? I felt pretty good, about what he was, what he's about to say, but I didn't really care what he was going to tell me. That was what I felt great about. Just give me a good heartbeat, And so he came in and he said, so, just so you know, you'll see the records. He coded twice. We had to resuscitate him 2 times. He needed 2 blood transfusions, and we nicked his sciatic nerve. So he won't have movement on his right leg, or very little, if he ever does. And I was like, oh, okay, all right. I've been watching a lot of babies around here, and he's in much better shape. Things could be a lot worse. And he's breathing. Yep, he's breathing, not on his own. He's on a ventilator, but he's got a good heart. He's got a really strong heart rate. I'm like, great, that's fantastic. Thank you, man. Kind of sat into my chair. My dad was sitting there, and it was a really good moment. And he said, give us a few hours. Get everything taken care of in his room, and we'll take you back there. I was like, fantastic. So I go upstairs. I tell Jessie, she's still medicated on a lot of really loopy, and she was just smiling at me and saying, "Oh, that's so good. I'm so glad to hear that." And I'm racing back and forth. I'd run down that big corridor up to the U, and then back down to primaries, and then up to the U to to give her, just relay any information. And next day, I was in his room, and in those rooms at primaries for the NICU, it's you share one wall with 3 babies and the other wall with 3 babies. So there's 6 babies in the room. And yeah.
It's hard to see him in there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there was more than one baby that passed away in that room. And unfortunately, I had to experience that. But I was sitting with my son. I was playing with his feet under the Billy Light, and he kicks his right leg. And I was like, maybe that was just a twitch or whatever it was. I didn't really understand it. I'm I start tickling his foot, and he kicks his foot again. And I go outside, and I grab the doctor, and I said, hey, my son's moving his right leg. Are you sure it wasn't his left?
Yes.
He comes in, he goes, no, it was his right leg. Let's go in, we'll do some tests. Give me 20 minutes. So I went and sat with them. 20 minutes later, doc comes in with a nurse, and they start running some tests. Well, he has movement of his right leg. And then they told us that he wouldn't be continent, so he wouldn't be able to control his poop or his pee, just because of the way the tumor had grown, and is probably going to be in diapers the rest of his life. So, he was potty trained before his sisters ever were. He was walking before his, sisters ever were. And, the kid is just, you'd never know it. You'd never know it. It happened. He's got some scars, that he's going to live with for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And for him, I hope one day he gets to a point where he recognizes that the scars are a win.
I'm sure he will
lesson,
one day. So no lasting problems from it or anything?
Nothing. We went through oncology for a year, and our last session of oncology, because they did find some immature elements within the middle of the tumor, but it was at the very center of the tumor, nothing on the outside that really exposes the body to more. But they ran test after test, and every test, his protein level, his alpha fetal protein levels, which, are usually the precursor for things like that in an infant. But they ruled it out, said, hey, you got clean slate. And yeah, we were super excited, jumped in the car, drive down the road. We stop at Nielsen's Frozen Custard. Let's celebrate. Let's get an ice cream. We grab an ice cream. We pull around Highland Drive down to Van Winkle.
Yeah.
We're parked there, and as we're heading down Highland Drive, this is when Cottonwood Mall was still there, We're heading down Highland Drive, and this lady was kind of swerving in front of us, and I, my, like, what is she doing? I don't know what this lady's. So I hurry and speed up around her, and I couple lights ahead, I get to Van Winkle, and I stop there, and we're parked and waiting for the light, and this lady blacked out in her car at 40 miles an hour and just smashed into the back of us and sent us out into the middle of the intersection. This is the day that oncology says, clean, celebrate, and now we're in this big car wreck sitting in the middle of this intersection. I jump out of the car, Ethan's screaming, crying, Jessie's, frantic, and she's trying to pull the car seat out. I come around the corner. She's heading over to the sidewalk. They're good. They're all right. I turn around and look at this car, and this lady, she's crumpled around her steering wheels, like flattened up against her chest. And she's got 2 children that are bleeding and like screaming in the car. So I run over to the car. They're all bloody. None of them wearing a seatbelt. Mm-hmm. I help get them out of the car, take them over to the side, and I go around to the side of her, and she's got all these needle marks up her arm. And, I just thought, gosh, this is a real world thing. I'm going to deal with this, whether it's family or just people in life. And ambulance came. We sat in the ambulance. They wanted to take us to Cottonwood Mall. And I said, no, absolutely not. We're only going to primaries. Yeah. So we went up to primaries, and they made us wait for 6 hours because they were full. But, it was worth it. It was good. Yeah. But, the whole experience is just, it's such a valuable experience, right? Like to go through that with your first child, not that everybody has to have it, but I experienced it. Jessie experienced it. And because of that, this appreciation level for life was changed.
I used to get really annoyed when we were having kids because people would say to us, what gender do you want? What gender do you want? And every single time, honest hand to God, I was just like, I don't care. Yeah. It doesn't make any difference. Also uncontrollable, right? It's one of those variables that drive me nuts. Like, I'm not going to say either way, even if I cared. If I get the other one, then is it weird, But I would always tell people, I'm like, I just want them to be healthy. Because you watch a couple people go through some struggles like that, and the stress that comes on them, and just and you never know where you're at in life, right? I mean, what if business wasn't that good, marriage wasn't that good, all these little things you got to work on, then you bring a baby in that just needs your constant care for a long time, and that's a lot of pressure. Yeah. A lot of stress, and I just always thought, I just want my kids healthy. That's all I care about. Yeah,
you took it for granted before that, though, and you realize that, like, wow, I took a lot for granted. And when people, like you said, people that are going through, like we spent almost 2 weeks up at primaries after surgery, and we got to go in and sit with, or at least myself, Jessie was still recovering, but I got to go in and sit in this conference table with all these other families that are experiencing similarities, and we get to share and how we're coping with it. And I was like, hearing these stories, I was like, wow, yeah, I'll take mine. Yeah. And there are people that we have friends that have challenges just having children. Mm-hmm. I just wanted one. There's people that don't want them, that have them. Yeah. I just want one, and I want one. I really want one. And then that happened, and there were moments in that where I was like, gosh, man, is this how it's supposed to be? And it was a good lesson for me. It was just an experience that I genuinely got to come away with a much greater level of appreciation and gratitude for my wife. I mean, what she experienced, not to downplay what a man goes through, because a man goes through a lot. It's challenging for both, but for a woman to have her body, basically torn in half, and to go through that challenge of birthing this into existence, and the emotions that they already go through, like I can't even begin to, break into what they experience, but, throughout marriage, you get to hear it. Yeah. You get to see how that experience formed this and formed that. And later in life, it's one of the greatest things about marriage is, you know, this deep desire to learn about this person. Like, you're so committed to understanding this person. You're going to dig up some of those wounds, some of those pains, and the realization of what it did and what it didn't do throughout your marriage. You know, what you can do with it now. It's been a blessing. So.
Yeah. When you see Ethan, do you still feel gratitude?
Man.
Or is he bugging you now that he's 15? You probably still remember that day super vivid, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't love my kids more than the other. I love them all the same. They've taught me so much about myself and how to love and you know, Ethan was the refiner's fire for me. And you know, I coached him for a long period of his life, and coaching's amazing. You know this.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things that I've been able to have the opportunity to do it. And I'll never forget the minute that we started him in T-ball, you know, like the jersey drowns him down to his knees, you know, sleeves are down by his forearms, and he's got this helmet that's drooping over his face that doesn't fit him, and he's going up there with a bat that outweighs him, and he's swinging at this ball, and you know, I'm watching him, and I'm hearing in my head he won't have movement of his right leg, and I'm bawling. I'm sitting on the sidelines, you know, coaching and clapping him, you know. My sunglasses were up on my head because I had to keep wiping the tears out of my eyes. And he's like, Dad, why are you crying? I hit the ball. And I'm like, man, someday.
Yeah.
Someday you'll know, and hopefully that someday is soon, because, you know, I want to share with you what you mean to me. And I don't need to share the experience I had there, just share how much I love and appreciate my children.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I coached him for a lot of years, won a lot of state championships, put him on some phenomenal teams. And then it got to a point where it was, you know, I like to think I'm smart enough. Like, I know I'm smart enough to recognize when I'm not as good as that coach, and I want him to coach my son. And then there's that aspect of where your son doesn't really listen to you. He's going to do it. He's going to do it, you know, to just challenge you. Or I don't do it like that, Dad. And he'll be better with this. And it really, he took off and got him on some really good teams, but he experienced a lot of failure, which was really good. You know, and sports will teach you that. Everyone thinks that, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people look at sports, you know, maybe those that don't participate in as much. I've talked with them a lot, you know, and maybe it creates this alpha male, maybe this toxic, you know, aspect of life. And no, I don't buy that. Yeah. It teaches you how to deal with failure. You know, you're going to fail. And what are you going to do when you fail?
Right.
You know, and you're going to lose. You're going to win some and you're going to lose some. And being a winner all the time can be crippling, you know, and learning how to deal with loss, learning how to deal with failure. That's important structure for life, you know?
Yeah, for sure. No, it's funny. We played softball. I got invited to play softball, right, with adults, you know, over the last 10 years. And I heard this quote, and then I said it. We beat this team's ass into the ground, right? And as we go out there to do high fives with all of them, I just go, "Hey guys, you can't appreciate the good if you don't experience the bad, right?" And they hated me. And I remember like talking to my teammates after, and they were like joking with me, right? They're like, "Oh, you're the only dude that can get away with that, you know, with your size." And just like, you know, these guys want a baseball bat you in that parking lot, you know, because I never took softball all that serious, right? And I don't even know really why I said it. I just kind of said it to kind of get a rise out of people kind of like have my teammates think I'm funny, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I've thought about that day like a million times, because if you don't experience bad in your life, you really don't appreciate the good. Mm-hmm. Like, you can't always be a good, because then good becomes neutral, and neutral becomes blah, and then you don't know any different. I was talking to one of our friends yesterday about this, and I'm like, dude, if you grow up in a private jet and you're flying all over the place in a private jet, like, you don't know anything different. Mm. You don't know how good that really, really is. And I think when we apply that back to our kids, like, I actually like watching my kids struggle through some stuff, kind of fail at some things and not be the best. And, because then you can get to have the opportunity to have the conversations where it's like, hey, you want to be better at that? You better work. Mm-hmm. My daughter, Brea, my oldest daughter, right? She's really good at swimming. And like the other day, she was at a match and she beat her score by like 30 seconds. And I'm always like, Brea, like, why don't you try your hardest in every single one of these races? If you're trying your hardest, you'd be maybe shaving a second or two off. You don't improve that much in 3 months. And it's just like this lesson I just get to keep on repeating to my kids. It's like, you got to go harder. You've got to be better at this. Like, go and go and go and go and go. And then when you really succeed at this, let's put you in front of some other people that will bury you. And then you can see there's always someone better. There's always growth. You ever get that feeling when you're talking to your kids?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we had, I thought this was a really cool example. Jessie and I were traveling back from a business trip a couple of years ago, and we sat next to a gentleman. His name's Justin Hyde, and he owns the ranch up in Wyoming that they film Yellowstone on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he does, he has one of the largest summits they hold there every single year, where they bring in governors and some past presidents and some big stars in to talk to them. And he was sitting next to us. He was sitting next to Jessie, and Jessie gets talking to him and find out, who he is. This guy has his own jet, his own private jet, and he's sitting in coach with us.
Yeah. And
he's telling us, he's like, yeah, this is who I am. And I'm like, why are you? And I lean over and I go, why are you flying coach, man? I at least fly first class or fly your plane.
Right.
What are you doing, man? If I had a plane,
that's all I do.
I wouldn't worry about the airport and going through security. That's for sure. And he said, you know what? My kids, we challenged them to earn their own way to Disneyland this year. And so they bought their flights. They bought their tickets to Disneyland. They paid for their portion of the hotel. And he goes, but we got the tickets too late, so we couldn't get our seats together. And if they're sitting coach, I'm sitting coach. And I was like, wow, that's cool, man. I really admire that. Yeah. I think that you're really teaching them that, that's a trait that if you grow up with a silver spoon, recognize, man, there's nothing above you, and there's certainly nothing below you. Yeah. You get to live and experience this life the way that you choose, and for some of us, we've gone through a few more challenges than others, but I think that at the end of the day, it's just life, right? Like it's like with baseball or softball. My oldest daughter, she's now gotten into softball in the last few years, and when they experience something, is it that tough to experience? Like it's failure, and avoiding failure means to me that you're avoiding living, because that's just life.
Yeah,
that's just life. People who are not failing, they're not living. The more failures you go through, the more wisdom and experience you get, and knowledge you get going forward. So it's an important aspect, and to be able to coach that, it's fun. I know with you in football, and I've had mine with baseball, and now with softball. I coached her for 2 years, and I no offense, son, but those were some of the funnest coaching years ever.
The softball stuff?
Oh, those girls, they are fighters. And when you talk to them, like get in there and inspire and like the team building, girls get it at that age. Boys are like, oh, I just got to win, you know? And it's like, no, this is teamwork. We want the team to win, you know? And these girls are like, yeah, girl, let's go get it. We're going to win this game. This team's going to be the best. And not me. I don't want to be the best. I want the team to be, and had some cool moments, man. We battled as a softball team, and it was fun. You know, I would joke with the girls, you know, what is it that you, what's the type of woman that you see that doesn't care what other people think?
Yeah.
Like, who is that woman? You know, these hands would go up here and there. One girl says, a cowgirl. And I'm like, yeah, what is it that a cowgirl has? And like, she doesn't care. She'll go ride a horse. You know, McKenna she had just given up horseback riding. Yeah. And the year before, she had just gone to state. And she was really good with animals, really good with horses. And she had this huge belt buckle that said state champion on it. And,
oh, cool.
And she didn't say anything. You know, the girls were talking, and I'm like, yeah, you know, cowgirls, they have swagger. I said, so you know what? Walking up to bat, let's walk up to that plate with some swagger. That pitcher will see it, the catcher will see it, the rest of the team will see it, your teammates will see it, and they'll want to emulate that, and you're gonna intimidate this other team too. And they're like, yeah, we're gonna do it. So every single game it's like swagger. I got swagger. And they'd start these chants and these songs with that. And one game we were going in, it was a championship game, and you know, like I'm visual. I want to help others get this vision, and so I brought McKenna's belt buckle. I didn't tell them where I got it. You know, I didn't. Kenna was she was in this phase where, you know, it's like, look, yeah, I did that, but you know, I don't want them to go and like praise me for it. I don't want to be recognized for it. And that's a whole different topic, right? Learning how to celebrate your wins. But I used that belt buckle to show the girls. I'm like, this is what I see every one of you girls wearing. You guys go take the field today. Like, this is your belt buckle. This is your swagger. You're going to go out there like a cowgirl. Like you've got your chaps on. You're going to go and ride that bull, and you're going to stare fear right in the face. And we went out and smashed that team. It was amazing. But it was the girls, man, they get it, that age. It was so fun to coach them at that age. They really resonated with that, and you know, loved each other a lot. But it didn't. The boys were more of, you know, let me show you how it's done. Let me take the light here, and you know, let me hit the home run, because I always hit the home runs, and you know, let me pitch because a lot of you guys need to learn how to pitch. And there's just a lot of that competitiveness with a boys team that you don't always see with the girls. And it was fun to coach. So I'm a girl dad all the way, man. I love my girls. Changed my life the minute I had the girls. You know, and I'm like you. I'm like, I don't care what I get. I just want another child. Yeah. You know, and our youngest, Knightley, she was a surprise. We told everyone we're not going to find out until we deliver. Nice. And she came out, and Doc's like, another baby girl. I was like, yes. I couldn't have been happier. Yeah. And she's been, you know, she's the attitude in the family. She's definitely got that spunk.
Yeah. So do you think the kids are going to follow your lead in the family business?
You know what? I don't know. Yeah, I'm not leading them there. Yeah. I definitely want to guide them into, you know, where to whatever is speaking to them.
Do they show any signs of what they want to do?
Yeah, you know, my Ethan, he is. He's considered a few different fields. He wants to go into business. He wants to do business. He's really working towards, you know, getting a scholarship in baseball, and to wherever that takes him, you know, doing an emphasis in business.
Yeah.
My eldest daughter, she's kind of lost this, like, this is what I want to do, and more of I'm going to enjoy where I'm at right now. And Jessie and I are supporting that. Mm-hmm. Our youngest is, like, for my daughters, I don't want my daughters to need permission from a man. That drives me nuts. I don't want my daughters to feel like they have to confess to a man. I don't want them to feel like they have to, they don't have special powers.
Yeah.
Like, they are special, incredible human beings. And just because they were born a woman means that they have everything they want and want to be. And, you know, with my youngest daughter, she came to us the other day, and we'll check in with her here and there. And you know, she wanted to be this dancer, and she wanted to be a, what was it? What's that person that, like, a contortionist? I want to be a contortionist. Yeah. And I was like, wow, a contortionist. Okay, let's go with that one for a while, a contortionist. And then she says to us the other day, she goes, so what's that? What's the person that tells the president what to do? And we were like, the presidential advisor. And she's like, that's what I want to be. And I looked at Jessie and I go, we need to book a trip to DC.
Yeah.
go through everything at DC and just show this girl, like, give her whatever dust she needs to sprinkle onto this thing and really season it. So yeah, I love it. I love watching these girls grow, and, you know, my son too, of course, but just watching them see what they can do, who they can become, loving who they are, not being ashamed of this person.
Right.
You know, you see it too often. You know, you see it often with boys too, but, you know, cultural, societal. You know, I married a woman who's very vocal with that type of thing. You know, so when those types of subjects get brought up, you know, Jessie's first to the table to talk about it. You know, but Jessie's not a feminist, wave the feminist flag, you know, and got to go on these marches. It's, hey, I want to establish, you know, a sense that, you know, female's not an F word.
Yeah.
That being a feminist is special. And, you know, the women that she interacts with, you know, I know they feel it. You know, she's got a special influence that, you know, is one that you know, I look up to. You know, she leads a lot in our family with that influence, and I think it's important that, you know, she takes the baton, and it's important that my kids see that I can take the baton from her. Like, hey, you know what, Mom ran this part, and this part, this is Dad's good. This is the leg that Dad's good at. And to see that, you know, we can ebb and flow, you know, that she's my muse, but I'm her muse, right? Like, I'm gonna inspire her in the things that she wants to do in life and aspires to be, and help her influence things the way she wants to influence, meet her where she wants to be met, and not expect her to stick in these cultural or societal confines because this is how men do it and this is how we think women should do it. It's, what do you want?
Yeah.
You know, and that's awesome. And let's explore that. And you know what happens when you go after a dream, that dream becomes bigger. And once you start to add color to it, it becomes even bigger and bigger and bigger. And you see her dreams grow and your dreams are growing. And, you know, when you get that continuity with the two of you, you know, you reciprocate love.
Yeah.
You know, it's not give, take, and every now and again I'll give. It's this give and take and this ebb and flow and the last 3 years has been, it's been magical. Somebody asked Jessie the other day while I was sitting next to her, they said, "Hey, so what part of marriage do you guys think you're in right now?" And Jessie didn't even hesitate. She goes, "Deep Space Nine." And I was like, dang, yeah, that's awesome. Like, I almost gripped the couch when she said that. I was like, let's go.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because there's so many levels to marriage. And it's pretty freaking easy to get married, actually. You just pick somebody, you both agree, you go get your marriage license, however you want to get married, you're into this, And I see myself, there has been levels where I could have been very content with the relationship that we both had built, but I like not ever being content inside my marriage, Michelle and I really get together a lot, sometimes through social gatherings, sometimes through different things, and reflect back and go, no, we got to go. We could be better at this. You and I could be more of what each other needs, and just get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And I see a lot of people not willing to take the time to do that, And I think it's...
Why do you think that?
Because I think they let so much external pressure just kind of form their world, or their expectations were light to begin with. I see a lot of people getting married and having kids and then enduring to the end, right? That's a local term here in Utah, right?
Mom and dad.
Yeah, once they hit enduring to the end, right? It's just like, well, shit. Well, if you hit enduring to the end at 27 years old, there's a lot of growth that you just don't really get. And I can see some men will kind of fall into the careers heavy, There's women that fall into being a mom really heavy. Nowadays you have crossover with that. And as you well know, marriage takes time, and it takes intentional time, and it takes like good time, not just watching TV together, but like participating in each other's lives.
Yeah.
And it's complicated and it's hard, and there's no roadmap. I can't even explain to people how we have such a good relationship, really. I can give some highlights and some advice, but really it's like, until you're in a relationship that is so deep and meaningful, like, how do you explain that to people? Because it's custom. It's custom for you.
It is. I think that you take the training wheels off when you really start to discover who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that many times, people can go down that rabbit hole and discover who they are and discover that they're not in love. So I think you're spot on. I mean, it's intentional.
Yeah.
What are you intentionally doing here? And yeah, I love the discovery phase. That phase will never die.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people who have this image of life and marriage, this description that was made up from somebody else, is setting themselves up for failure.
Right.
And even if you have kind of moved and graduated from this one-dimensional, perception of marriage to 2 or even 3, like, that's maybe when you get into the third aspect of marriage, it's just like, yeah, okay, well, this is where we're at, and we're going to have to be content with these things, or we're going to have to endure till the end. And this person just doesn't get me.
Yeah.
After all these years, he won't get me.
Yeah.
She won't get me. And I'm like, man, my marriage is so multi-dimensional. I get to discover this person every day, and tomorrow, and next year, and in 10 years, man, I can't even, my imagination, based on what I know now, it can't even go that far.
Yeah.
There's so much that I've learned about this person. Aubrey Marcus talked about this one time because he had that open relationship, and he talked about how incredible it was for him to discover the depths of monogamy, and how what happens when you go into it with that intention, how much you find out about yourself. You're so committed to this person that these fights and these like issues that come up, like, they're not a break the contract issue.
Right.
They're hey, let's work through this. This is really hard for me to understand. Maybe it's something about myself, or maybe I'm projecting the things onto you that I want you to be because I can't be them for myself. And that's where I need to discover first. And that's like when I said, Jessie said Deep Space Nine, I was like, yeah, that's the truth, man. I don't know what's going to be on the end of that horizon, but like I want to go there
with her.
Yeah. I want to go there.
Well, another thing too, right? As you grow as a person, I mean, we both got married at 22, right? I mean, we should not be the same mentality we were at 22 now. I mean, no one is. You got to be an idiot. Yeah,
if you're repeating the same year after year in your relationship, then man, you're not challenging yourself. Yeah. You're not putting yourself in really tough predicaments. You're avoiding them because it's not that you feel this person is too weak. It's you feel that about yourself. So I think, first and foremost, it's getting right with yourself.
Yeah. No, self-love is insanely important. It's weird. Like, that's one of the things in the We Are the They group I've noticed with some men. They really don't love themselves. Some actually hate parts of themselves. And it's, you hear, like the funny with cliche statements, right, is they're all true. That's why they're cliche, And you get in these situations, these guys, like with some of these men and even people outside of We Are the They, and it's just like, bro, you got to spend some time loving yourself. People will call it whatever, working on themselves or trying to find themselves. And all that really is like, you got to love yourself.
Yeah.
And to love yourself, you have to do things that you love.
Yeah.
Whether that's being physical, physical exercise, treating your wife amazingly, right? Treating your children amazingly. Those are things that you're going to like about yourself. That's how you learn to love yourself, is you take the good parts of you and share them with other people. Then it comes back to you. Then you realize when you look in the mirror how much you like yourself.
Yeah.
Not that we're, you got to throw the caveat in, right? We're not perfect. I mean, I can be a monster, but I'd like to choose not to be.
We're perfectly imperfect, right?
Yeah.
Like that. I love that saying. I think it's hypocritical to love someone and not love yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a little bit delusional for us to think that we can hide it.
Yeah.
Like we have this inner dialogue and we have this inner conscience that it sees what each other's doing without needing to speak. It watches body language. It watches the actions. It watches how you treat yourself. It watches how you treat others. It's this inner conscience that watches all these things. And that inner conscience, to me, it can guard love, and it can block love. And you really want to love someone, you got to love yourself first before they'll ever believe it, because their conscience and their subconscious, if the two of them can believe that together, then what they can display to you, the love that they'll actually let go of, that they're actually saying inside, I don't know, this person is ready for this. They can see our emotional maturity levels. Yeah. And that's been a really cool kind of area that Jessie and I are in right now, is exploring that and, having some compassion on ourselves, for times that we weren't, and maybe, giving ourselves some grace. But the fun part is being in a space with your spouse, and in this case with my wife, that I'm comfortable, being in my feminine. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm being my masculine all day long. I'm confident with that. Yeah. Why wouldn't I be confident being in my feminine? What would that show you? That your feminine creeps me out? Right. That your emotions are too much? Man, I hear that. I hear that a lot. I hear it a lot in men and women right now, where they think they're too much for their spouse, and so they're afraid to share. Yeah. If we can show our women that they're not too much for us, their emotions aren't too much, that I can in fact display some of the same emotions. Watch. And in doing so, I'm showing you that you're safe here. I'm not shaming you. If you have an emotion, what's it telling you? What's it telling me? What's that behavior that emotion causes?
Yeah.
But maybe more importantly, what's the need that evokes the emotion? And learning how to deconstruct that part of our conditioning, I think is challenging, but it's a lot of fun. And you got a wife that you can do it with, who's comfortable doing it with you. The things that you can explore, the chasms that were dark your entire life that you've now illuminated. You can go into depths and parts of your marriage, parts of monogamy, parts of like this relationship where the two of you are so committed to figuring each other out. Like you're gonna expand that depth to outer space. This is so much more than a three-dimensional relationship, a three-dimensional human being. You yourself are not three-dimensional, you're multi-dimensional. And there's parts of you that haven't been illuminated yet. What happens when they're illuminated? What's she going to experience too? And what are you going to experience when those are illuminated in her? And let's go there. Man, that's the fun and the joy that I'm at right now in my marriage. It's Deep Space Nine.
Well, I think one thing I like to point out to people too is like, if you want to be successful in life, which most men do, right? Most men want a level of success. They want a level of accomplishment, interpersonally, with their friends, and financially, right? Did you find success in that? The best way to do that, to be successful, is to have a spouse. And I think there's been times in my life where I really haven't been bold enough to say that to people, because you got single people and shit happens to people, right? So you don't want them to feel bad, but really the truth is I am way stronger being in a committed, loving marriage that challenges me, that's not perfect, that's messy, that's dirty, that we have things we're working on, but we have goals together. Like everything else kind of attaches to that rocket ship as I'm kind of, plowing through life. Mm-hmm. At least that's how I feel. I feel like, because we're both entrepreneurs, we're both business owners, and it's, I could not be at the level of success that I'm at without having my wife. Especially almost because she likes the domesticated stuff. She takes cares of the kids, the family, I was just thinking about this the other day. I haven't made my bed in like 10 years. She does it every day. I'll get out of bed, go take a shower, whatever. By the time I get back, it's just done. And we've reflected on stuff like that, where I'm like at laundry, I haven't done laundry either. I jacked up a couple iPods back in the day, and, she's taking that duty away from me. And, but she likes it, and there's a role, there's a balance between us. But I look at that and I'm like, man, she just takes stuff that off of my plate that I just don't have to worry about. And that allows me to hyper focus and be insanely efficient in the other things that I'm working on that benefit her, but also benefit me, that benefit the family. And it's like this massive minutia of just, we're in this together. Mm-hmm. And so when I see people, when they don't have good relationships with their spouse,
they're in competition with each other.
Yeah, it's just broken, right?
It's like, well, why didn't you do the bed? Well, you did the bed yesterday. I'll do the bed today. And it's like, there's no competition, man.
I'll tell you one thing I always thought was hilarious, right? I've had guys work for me, tons of people work for me through the years. And there was a phase where, a lot of us were having kids, right? And these guys that would just be like, yeah, man, my wife woke up last night, breastfed the baby. So then she woke me up and I had to burp the baby. And I was just like, what? Like I used to always tease him, right? It's like, dude, if you want to switch nights, I don't care what arrangement you guys come up with, but it's ridiculous for it to be fair that you both have to wake up multiple times during the night, because now you're dragging ass at work because you're freaking sleepy. Mm-hmm. And I always remember looking at that. I didn't blame either partner, but I would just go, you're not on the same page. You guys are not moving towards the same goal. You're trying to make everything fair and even. Instead of being like, no, let's split some duties. Let's attack this. What's our overarching goal? And even if that overarching goal is just to be a good parent, it can be simple. It doesn't have to be some massive, well thought out thing. But it's like, hey, for us to be good parents, we both need sleep, right? and I need to go provide for the family because we have to have money to, you know, pay for our bills. So it's like, hey, for us to be really good parents, let's break these duties down. And I think it's one of the beautiful things I've done with my wife. We've just, I don't even know if we decided. Who knows, right? You got to live in the moment so much. It's just like, I don't know. We just kind of figured it out years and years and years ago. But there's just so much strength to that.
There is. Yeah, it's special that you guys have discovered that, you know, and a lot of relationships, a lot of, like me included, you know, discovering more and more of that, you know, it's important. But being, like you said, being in that discovery mode is, like, there's so much more to learn and so much more to apply. Yeah. In what we're doing. I mean, the two girls were an easy one for Jessie, and truthfully, the two girls were just easy in general. Ethan was he didn't want to go to bed. Now, I mean, there were some challenges, but I could pick him up and rock him to sleep with, you know, my deep voice, right, in 5 minutes, you know, and Jesse'd be up, you know, stirring with him throughout the night, but I could rock him to sleep in 5 minutes and he'd be out like a light and he'd sleep for as long as we could get him to sleep. Yeah. And so I took on that duty. It was just, hey, you know what? I'm going to go put Ethan to sleep. And, you know, if he woke up periodically throughout the night, Jesse'd take care of him, you know. But then there was, you know, Jessie stepped into this, really this mindset of corporate and driven financially, that she wanted to explore and become these certain things that she longed for, that she desired. And, you know, if you asked her, you know, did motherhood come second nature to you? No. She'd say no. But business did. Business came second nature to her. You know, so I think it's special that, you know, as a husband and wife, that you like recognize each other's strengths. And then don't interfere. Don't try to go in and say, okay, well, you're not doing this good enough, so I'm going to try to do something that in a world I don't belong. Like, don't shame them. Like, let them explore and be patient. Like, this is something we're all learning and adapting all of these new understandings to our life in different ways that we ever knew possible. And these are the things that you desire to do. I want you to achieve those. We still have a family and we still have children, and that's our priority. And let's build around that. And let's stop trying to build that what they have, or maybe build this that we think is right, and let's build right here. Jessie and I, we've always said this. We've had a partnership marriage where, just like a business, we're in a partnership. This is our business. Our family is our business. Yeah. And that's like my proudest business. Like, out of any business that I've ever been in, that's the most special business for me. You know, and our children may not like hearing this, but they're like our employees, and the things that we're sitting down and going on, the inspiration, when the culture that we create, all those things within a business, you can apply those same things to your family. You know, I don't need to go and tell my children what to do so much anymore, because they know and they understand their responsibilities, because they understand how it affects the culture. They understand how much ownership they have in it, because it influences. They influence. Yeah. And not as a girl, but as McKenna. And not as a girl, but as Knightley. And not as a boy, but as Ethan. Like, they influence things through their unique way. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we don't have this oil and water mom and dad. We have this concoction, you know, and the potency of that concoction is how well you work together as a partnership, how well your influence and their influence, you know, creates this, and that drives creativity, and it drives motivation, and it drives, you know, other, you know, different possibilities. that's the magic, I think. You know, I know that, you know, my kids are teenagers now, you know, so they're really, I feel like they're going through the cloud of teenage years. You know, my son went through that and was like, "Ooh, Mom, don't touch me," or "Oh, I don't want to talk about that right now."
Yeah.
You know, because as a teenager, they're going through so many things, and as a parent, if you're not talking to them constantly, you know, even if they don't want to talk about it, like letting them know that, hey, you know, this isn't something that I'm going to hide from as a dad.
Yeah.
You know, realize that you're uncomfortable about something, then we can back off of it. But man, it's so fun to have these conversations. And sometimes it's painful because, you know, you're like, gosh, would you just, and now my son's coming out of it. So it's like, hey guys, I'm back.
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know I was joking with my wife. It's like, I don't know when our kids are going to start being bothered with us. You know, right now they kind of seem to love us a lot. But, you know, I got a 13-year-old daughter. I'm not an idiot. It's coming around the corner somewhere.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
when they stop thinking dad's funny and mom bothers them and
Yeah.
they want to be cool. I just always joke with my kids that I'm the coolest guy that they know. They were asking me the other day, they asked me if I was famous, right? And I go, that's an interesting question. And I was like, technically, no, I'm not famous. I said, because they go with me all over the place. I just, you know, through business and just, you know, being in the world and, you know, volunteering and being on, you know, boards and stuff like that, I've got to know a lot of people. But I also go to the same, like when I go down to UVU, right? I chaired their culinary arts board for like 8 years. Then I graduated from there. Then I was on their leadership board for 4 years. And now I'm involved with their athletics stuff, you know? And so, and I know the coaches, I know a lot of the staff. And so every time I go down there, I have to say hi to literally 20 people, right? Or if I sit down, I have season tickets. So if I sit down for the basketball, you know, I got, 20 people that walk up to me and they're like, "Hey, Mark, blah, 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 this. Oh, is this your son? Blah, blah." You know, they all love him. And my kids are like, "I think you're famous." And I'm like, no, this is kind of a controlled scenario where I've made it look like I'm kind of famous, you know? And it's so much fun experiencing life with them, you know? And I drag him to stuff. Like my son Nixon, he can't stand going to, but it's not that he can't stand. He likes to go with me to basketball games for about 20 minutes and he's done with it, right? Yeah. I'm like, sorry, brother, we're in this thing for like almost 2 hours, you know? And then football games, I bought Raiders season tickets years ago. My vision with him, right, was to take him to a Raiders game every year. And then like, you know, when he's 20, 30, right, like it's like every year I go to a Raiders game with my dad. We sit in these seats and like we have all these people around us and stuff. And oh my gosh, I took him to like a preseason game. I want to say it started at like 7 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night. So this thing went to like 1 a.m. in Vegas, you know, so we're already an hour behind. And man, after the first quarter, dude, he was like hating life. He's like, "I want to leave, Dad. I don't even know what's going on," and blah, 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 blah. You know, and he was like, see, he's 10 now, so he would have been 8, you know. I was like, "Hey, come with me." So we go out there. I go up to one of the candy shops, right? I buy every candy there was. I'm just like, "Here." So for the second and third quarter, he just ate candy the whole time. Oh, no. And I remember a couple of the dads, they were kind of laughing, you know, because it's my section it's in the 240 section, right? So it's like, they're hardcore fans in there, but they're more like, they're like dads. It's like dads and sons, basically, right? And so they're all just like, "Oh yeah, dude, if I go back in time, I'd have given my kid more candy he could ever eat," you know, just like all this kind of stuff. It was nice. It was kind of confirming. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to shove candy down and just make him come to things with me.
Yeah.
You know, I make him come to work with me. I make all my kids go to work. You know, it's like not real frequent, but you know, when I feel like it, it's like, "Hey, you're coming to work with me today." And then they get to hear me talk to people and interact, and they don't really know what I do. Yeah. But like it's fun.
Funny. I had my oldest two we did a lot of parade of homes. You know?
Yeah.
Like when we first like really kick-started the company, the first couple of years, you know, it was getting things going. Jessie and I, you know, I finally convinced her to leave her job and partner up in a business. Mm-hmm. And it was the first time that we had partnered in a business. And so we started building these homes. We started, you know, getting into some development, and we put a home in the parade, won a ton of accolades on it. And then the next year, another home ton of awards on it. And it was like getting into this limelight, you know, and the kids were starting to see us going up on stage, and then they were asking me to participate in this. And then they'd ask me to speak in front of this group, and you'd hear them ask, you know, certain things, you know, like, who are we? What is this family that we have, you know? And like, are we, are we like that? And is it like this in the movies? And my youngest daughter, I'll never forget, she mentioned that to me one day. She goes, Dad, are we famous? And she had experienced a particular phase of our business where we had been, you know, Jessie and I had done a ton on social media, on our particular company. We had a pretty big following at the time. We had like 12,000 followers, and you know, it was husband and wife team doing their business and building homes, and HDTV reached out and wanted us to audition for this new, you know, couples, home building type of show. And we're like, oh, that's cool. Let's be like this couple out of Texas, and it'll be a lot of fun. Maybe we'll, I don't know, it'll take our company somewhere. Like, we were very open-minded with it. It was nerve-wracking, right? Like, you're going to be on TV, and it was kind of scary. There was some trepidation, but, you know, we go in and we audition, and the kids were involved in that, you know, or at least our youngest was. And we brought her along with us, and she was like, oh my gosh, you guys are auditioning for TV. And then we made it through all the cuts. At the final cut, you know, it's us and this other couple. And they told us what the show was. The show was Bet That House. And I'm like, Bet That House? The hell is that? I thought this was like a home building, like bet the house. House flippers? Okay, and I kind of, you know, both of us kind of lost this enthusiasm around it. And I don't know if it was noticeable in the last audition, but we ended up losing the cut. And but taking our daughter through that, she was like, are you guys famous? Are we going to be on TV? And it was fun to take her through that. And it was fun to experience all that. You know, it definitely happened for a reason. And did or didn't happen for a reason. And it put Jessie and I in a place where, you know, I don't know, it's kind of cool to kind of consider that. I don't know, maybe that might be a cool idea. And then, oh, you know what? I think we're good.
Yeah.
I think we're good. So it was fun.
Are you finding it very enjoyable working with your wife?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You probably have very distinct roles, right? Is that the best way to do it?
Yes. Yeah. Very much so. Very much so. I run operations. She handles all of our land acquisition, and she handles all of our land development. But before that, she handled all of the finances. She did the marketing. She built all of our pro formas for all of our lenders, all of our investors. Mm-hmm. She built all of our bank ledgers for all the various banks we were working with. You know, she did all of our P&Ls. You know, she was very, very good at any of that. And, you know, that came natural to her. And then, you know, one year she just said, hey, you guys, I'm going to develop land too. We were like, oh, okay. You know, back at it, team. And then, you know, I wander out of the office one day, and I stop and look in our sales office, and on one of our sales personnel's desks was a contract for a piece of land. And it was signed, and the contract was executed, both parties. And I'm reading this contract, and I'm like, oh, we just purchased $1.8 million in land, and I didn't even know about it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it was Jessie's way of kind of like, you know, hey, I'm going after this, and I don't have to rely on anybody. And it was kind of this cool, like, emergence, like coming out of this place and saying, you know, I can go and do this, and watching her go and do it. And she set her own goals and her own milestones. And when she hit this milestone in the phase of the development, she was going to go and buy herself an Audi Q8. And she hit it, and she comes home with an Audi Q8. I'm like, Yeah, I mean, you're buying cars too, and I don't even know about it. So, yeah, that was a lot of fun. She ended up, I hated that car. I couldn't stand that car.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did not like it. Well, for one, it wasn't the RS Q8.
All right.
So, you know, and I wanted a little oomph behind it. And she needed that just, you know, experience to know that, you know, I can do it with or without. I don't need this. I want.
Yeah.
I don't need you, Jarom. I want you. And to kind of untether from this, I have to have you, and this codependency, you know, we spent a while in our marriage kind of grappling with that. Because we spent a lot of our marriage inside of dependency. You know, I'm dependent on you for this, and I'm dependent on you for that. And instead of having that, what they call, intra-dependence, you know, learning how to believe in yourself and that you can go and do certain things, but also recognizing that people have their strengths. And the more and more you allow their strengths to push and pull the wagon, you're going to get a lot further. You're going to get a lot ahead in life. She went out of town about a year after she bought the Q8, and I couldn't stand it. And I went and I took the title out of the office and I signed it over to me. I wrote her name on it, signed it over to me. And I had that car sold within 3 hours. And I purchased an X7 for her. And she came home and opened up the garage when she got back in town and saw that there. And it was cool. She's like, you know,
she was happy with that transaction.
Gifted me a car by surprise. So it was fun. Yeah.
Did you know she wanted that one, or did you just pick one?
I just picked one. Yeah. We'd kind of been eyeballing a few, and I, you know, just picked that one. And, you know, we've never been married to any one particular car. So I knew she wasn't going to be super offended by me selling her Q8.
Yeah. It's funny. I go into cars, you know, people see me. I have a lot of trucks, right? I'm sure you guys do, right? With the company, because they get a tax break, right? Yeah. And like, people are like, oh, what car do you want? Blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, I'll probably buy a truck forever just because I get a tax break on it. And I'm massive. So like Lamborghinis, Porsches, all that bull crap. Like I'll never have one because I don't even fit in them. Yeah. Right. It's like being in a freaking sardine can, you know? And yeah, I'm not married to cars either. You know, I get in them. I like them. I mean, I like a nice vehicle, but like most of the time I just end up passing it down through my organization. I'll just get a new one, you know? So I never were like super connected with it. And then when I traveled a ton, we were in rentals all the time, you know? So I was in a new rental car all the time. And I'm just like, oh, this car, you know, I've never really loved it. It's funny though, because the Q8 is actually one that I test drove instead of getting our Denali. And I was like, oh, this one's a little bit smaller, you know, it's not quite as big as this one. Is that nicer? Is it easy to park? You know, you like kind of look at all these little different things. But yeah, so when you said Q8, I was like, oh, wonder how that was. I kind of fell in love with it because I love that dash. It is. You know, that had that full LCD dash on it.
You know, the thing for me was anytime we wanted to go travel, it was, let's take the truck. Yeah. Because we can't fit a family of 5 in the Q8.
Right.
You know, we certainly can't fit baseball bags and all that stuff in a Q8.
Yeah.
So, you know, we oftentimes drove separately.
Right. You know,
and Jessie had a Suburban at one period of our lives, and she was just like, yeah, I just don't like driving that big thing around. I'm horrible at parking is what she would say. I'm horrible at parking. And, you know, and so we ended up getting a different car, something a little bit easier to park. Yeah. And it was funny because it slowly de-evolved into this small car that we couldn't fit our family in.
Right.
But it was important for Jess because she met a milestone.
Yeah.
And she went and took care of it and rewarded herself for hitting that milestone. And it was really awesome for my daughters to watch too, and my son.
Oh yeah.
You know, when I was looking at it, I was like, yeah, damn. Yeah. Boy, I hope you marry someone like that just goes and does it. She finds something that's going to drive her. Yeah. You know, and it doesn't have to be a car.
Yeah.
It could be I want to go and hit this milestone for the family. It doesn't have to be business, right? Like that's kind of been that's been the center of our marriage. Is it doesn't matter what business we create outside. Like this is the business. It's important what we create inside of this.
Yeah.
And the influence that this has, first and foremost, is the most important thing on everything else. Not what influence that has, what influence this business has, but it's the influence that we have here in our family, the influence that she and I have together, that influences these children, and the influence that she and I have together that influences our lives, and the influence that she and I have together that can, create all these other things that inspire us to do. Like that's like, like getting back to what I was saying about her being my muse, right? Like we hear that a lot, where our wives are our muse. Well, we're their muse. What do they want to do? What are they driven towards? Are they driven towards being a phenomenal mom and taking care of this house and inspiring the things within that house? And are they driven towards business and all these other things? Are they driven towards that? And does that mean that they're successful or not? Like let's really start asking all of those questions and challenging all of those beliefs, and really allowing he or she to step into something that's meant for them, and not because someone told us to. Yeah. It's been fun. It's been fun building this business with her. And when we were approached by the company that we're a part of now, it was, a huge change, and one that I think has definitely allowed us access to a different level.
Yeah.
Different level of each other, because it challenged us together, equally but individually, and it opened us up to some different levels.
So what's the next 10 years look like for Alair?
So Alair's built and designed to, let me just say this. Alair is changing the industry. I'm watching everything that Alair kicks out first. 2 years later, you'll see a lot of these other big custom home, luxury home building companies start to adopt it and apply.
Is that mostly in design?
Not design. No, because the design is unique to the specific region, like parts of Canada, parts of, southern United States, like Florida, like they're all unique. We all use our own different designs. Some of us are, working to gain access to, some of the most highly coveted designers in the United States or parts of Canada, and the access to them means that we can help reshape some of these designs and show that we're doing this and we're doing that. And we can cover a much larger spectrum, but Alair, it's revolutionizing things in the way of client experience, right? And model things after this client control. Clients have control from start to finish, and we put them in the driver's seat. We don't influence them. We give them information and allow them to make those decisions and have that buy-in on their specific project. Every project's a prototype. We don't do a lot of the same homes. If I do, it's because a client saw one of our homes in a parade and really wants that home. Like they're completely smitten by that floor plan, want to repeat it, but then they find out that they can change some things and make it their own. And so we help them with that. And you hear a lot about how builders are transparent, and transparency, and to me that word's almost triggering, because you hear it so much and that they're not.
Yeah.
But we use full disclosure. everything, full disclosure, from the bidding, the estimating, the design, the conversations, how many hours we spend on the project daily. Everything is full disclosure, and allowing our clients to see how they can influence the bottom line, through their control. And the only way that can be done is through full disclosure. And, for some of them, it can be overwhelming at first because it's a lot of information to deal with. So, we go through a good sized discovery phase to recognize whether or not that particular client is Alair material, whether or not we're good for them. And through that discovery phase, oftentimes we've had to part ways with the client, not in a bad way, but just, hey, this is not, we need to make sure that through the project process that the living better, which is which is what we wear and we live by, our mantra is the living better starts here, that it doesn't just mean for our clients. It doesn't just mean for us either. We're creating the full disclosure with our subs and our suppliers. So our subs and suppliers know that, hey, Alair, they fully disclose these things to their clients. Wow. Well, all these other builders have me pack it this way or package it this way. And we don't do that. No, we don't do that. I think a lot of builders are starting to see that. Not all. And I think a lot of builders are starting to see the value in that.
Yeah.
And it's put together, by an incredible team. Head office is ran by individuals that have some of the purest intentions and, visions and goals for the company that are not based on monetary stats. They're not based on these dollar goals. We want to hit this. It's that's a byproduct of what we want to do. What we want to do is bigger. It's the experience. Let's work on experience, client experience. How can we dive into that? Man, if we can hit and nail client experience, how many people do you know that say you built a home? How many clients? I heard this from my dad all the time. He'd tell clients all the time, well, I definitely think that, building a home is going to challenge your marriage the most,
Right.
Or you hear from him or people in the industry, buyers are liars. And then you'd hear people say things about home builders, like they're like used car salesmen. So you got this perception out there that it's recognizable, it's definitely there. And it's something that Alair is determined to shift, and we're not focused on persuasion. We're giving you the facts. We're giving you all the information. How's that sound?
Yeah, you're almost like kind of becoming partners on this project, basically, right?
Yeah. So the experience, and if a client's coming into it and they just don't want to deal with that, and they may be a client that's right for us. I have a lot of clients that are out of state. A lot of clients that are building their vacation home and their summer home, and they don't really care to influence things, but it's important for them to know that they can trust us and partners within Alair. So Alair reached out to Jessie and I. I was that particular year, I was the president of the Homebuilders Association. And when they had contacted me, I thought they were just looking for a way to gain access into the state. And I was like, yeah, okay, through the association, maybe got my name, my contact information through the association. And they hadn't got my contact info from any of them. They'd actually been doing research and following the social media and following the vibe that we were giving off, and did a ton of background, like things that I couldn't even pull up. It was strange. And then they reached out to me, and I didn't tell Jessie about it. They talked to me about it. You know, it's not one of my prouder moments. But honestly, I didn't share the information with Jessie for almost 2 weeks. And I was, I had really thought that they were wanting to gain access into the state of Utah just as another builder. And I was the president of the Homebuilders Association. It's kind of common for me to, deal with that type of exchange. And you're dealing with that not just in a county level, but at a state level. And I was going back to DC several times, and it was fun. It was a cool experience. But then when they reached out to me, I thought, okay, yeah, how can I help you get into the state? And after several minutes on the phone, it was like, no, dummy, they want to talk to you. They want you to be involved. They want you to run this in the state of Utah. And they were actually looking at me and Jessie and 2 other builders. So they were vetting out 3 builders in the state, and I was nervous. Like I almost took offense to it when I realized that. I'm like, you know how long I've spent building this company and this name, all of our parade homes, all of our accolades? Like, do you know, like, to walk away from that? I'd be walking away from all that. And then I realized I'm not walking away from anything. I'm actually magnifying what I'm wanting to create, and it has nothing to do with a name. And it really doesn't have to do with an individual. It just has to do with like this philosophy of building. Yeah. And they saw it, and that's why they loved it. And I took it to Jessie after holding it for about a week and a half. They had talked to me 3 times on the phone. I'm like, yeah, I just haven't talked to my wife yet about it. And I talked to her. I'll get back around to calling you guys back. And I was delaying it, and I knew what Jessie's answer would be, because the whole back end, the whole back end support for it, the office support for it was like a 10x what Jessie was doing. Yeah. The ability to visualize 5-10 years down the road was enormous. The ability to gain access to numbers, every single second of every single day on everything, to be able to forecast what we want to do. And it was really important, and something that took Jessie a lot of time. So when I took it to her, she's like, this is a no-brainer. I think we need to franchise with them. And I was like, I thought you were going to say that. Yeah. And so we flew up to head office in Canada and met with them, and the rest was history. And it was one of the best decisions that she and I both made, for our business, and took us into, an influence of builders. The builder influence is enormous, and now it puts Jessie and I in a position now where we're regional partners for the state of Utah. So we're not just building this home building company, we're scaling it. Yeah. We're scaling it through process. We're creating something that you can repeat, that when a client comes in, they're not buying a Jarom or a Jessie to build their home. They're buying a process. Mm-hmm. And by doing so, now that we can scale, we can repeat, we can scale, and we can put in more offices. So, our goal over the next 5-10 years is to grow out the region, is to reach out to other builders that are really looking for some of the same things, that want to grow, that want an exit strategy. Like, imagine that. Imagine you can get to a point where you can actually sell your business. There's not too many of them in construction that can. Yeah. Or if they are, they're usually a sub-trade, where it's a product that the process isn't very difficult. But building a home, that process can be challenging, and we've got the best of the best that have come in to scale that. So, we get together on masterminds weekly. We've done that for now 4 years, weekly mastermind calls. And there's 3 masterminds a week. Pick which one you want to get in. You want to get into a remodeling mastermind? There's probably 70, 80 people on the call from throughout North America.
Yeah.
And they're some of the best out there. Like some of the best home builders in some of these states and Canada are Alair. And so, we're working with them, influencing things at a national level now, where they'll be speaking at the Home Builders show this year down in Vegas. So that it's just a compounding effect. And Jessie and I have the opportunity of growing out the region of Utah, so getting an office set up in Utah County is important to us, another one in Park City, another one in St. George, and demographically Utah could sit with 15 offices.
Right.
That's pretty big, for Utah, but I mean, there's regions and parts of Texas that are just, that have 30 offices, and and there's probably, what do we have right now? I think there's 4 or 5 regions in Texas, and each one of them can operate at 20, 30 offices. So there's definitely, room to grow here in Utah, maybe not at the level of areas like Texas or Florida, or even California. Just brought on a new partner out in California, a really great partner, and we've got more to come. But there's over 100 partners, 100 offices. There's over 100 offices of partners.
Yeah.
And once we grow out the region here in Utah, Jessie and I will provide support for each one of those partners, and probably have ownership, and not just ours, but maybe 1 or 2 others. My goal is not to have ownership, though. My goal is to grow out the region so that, we can impact the industry like I know it needs. Like I know builders like myself and Jessie are really, we're choking, on their own fumes. So there's definite need out there. And with that need, there is a huge influence that Alair can provide to help people and not just clients, but other builders, other sub-trades, and doing things the right way. I think I can do it for this, or let's shake on it. Like, I love that. I really do. I love that my dad and that generation is like, yeah, I'm just a handshake kind of person. It's like, that's great. Eventually you're gonna butt heads with the person that recognized that the decision that they made impacts their family. And now they're looking for ways out, and they have no contract with you.
Yeah.
And so your handshake doesn't mean much to them because it impacts their loved ones. And now they're not willing to challenge themselves through a commitment, just like in a marriage, to figure this out. Let's figure it out together. So that's important for us. Like, we'll bring you in to do your job as a sub-trade. You're going to sign a sub-trade agreement. How's that sound? And that sub-trade agreement is going to be driven by this scope of work. And that scope of work is going to be driven by everything that the client wanted for that particular aspect of the project. Yeah. And we've spent a lot of time vetting out all of those thoughts and ideas and wants. And now we're going to put together a scope of work that's going to go along with the plans, so that you're not just guessing and your estimate is something that we like. Now we're going to sign a sub-trade agreement based on things that we're agreeing on. Not saying, if you want to do the work, you have to do it by this. Can you do it by this? Yeah. This is the price. This is what we're expecting. And the client can see that too. And they don't feel like they're in the dark, or that we've had this secret agreement.
Yeah, there's kickbacks and there's...
they can influence the bottom line the way that they feel they need to. And in the end, we can move forward with an experience that has a lot better fluidity, and we don't get hung up on the small things that builders do in the dark or behind the scenes.
Yeah. They're coming from a subcontracting world, right? It's interesting how they I mean, there's some subcontractors that bid low and then they just try and change order you to death to actually make their margins, you know? And that's the stuff that's infuriating about building. It's like beyond infuriating. And so, yeah, I could see why, making them part of the process and, hey, you want this in your house? This is how you do it. This is what it costs, you know? Just everyone's going in with eyes wide open. It's a more pleasant experience for sure.
Yeah, and if you want to change it, change it.
Yeah.
You these are going to be the costs. You know our hourly rate on the changes because we bill out all the hours direct. You see every single one of them throughout the day. And that change doesn't come with a change order fee. We don't do this change order fee. It's going to be whatever the costs are to do that, whatever the material, whatever the labor are, and however many hours it's going to cost us. Now, we could that's going to take us 2 hours to go in and change and to recreate all the schedules and go and sit down with all the subs, or maybe we're going to have to go out onto the job site and we're going to have to manage this back and it's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take 2 hours and we're going to add that to it. But it takes an hour and a half. Well, guess what? We didn't charge you 2 hours because we've always made everything visible to you.
Yeah.
We only track the hours we use. We only charge for the things that we're using, the materials, the labor, management. We're only charging for the things we're using. And when you have that level of transparency, you know, the trust that the clients bring to the table is far different. It's far different.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, we're at the end of the podcast.
Nice. This was fun.
We've gone for a while. I think we've gone almost 2.5 hours.
Ooh,
So I need your best 2 minutes of advice at the end. And it can be anything, spiritual, physical, financial.
You know what? I would say be who you are. Don't be somebody else. You know, trying to be somebody else, trying to repeat somebody else's successes is only gonna end in regret. You miss out on some of the things that you were so focused on other things, you know, and so I would definitely say be who you are and accept others for who they are. Don't fall in love with this dream person. Don't fall in love with the potential of your wife. Fall in love with her. Fall in love with you now. And I think that when your wife sees that you've fallen in love with her, if you haven't, and I think that when you see that you've fallen in love, had some self-acceptance and fallen in love with that person, your inner dialogue changes. You see life a little shinier, and the inspiration that follows is a lot more forthcoming. So that would be my advice.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mark. Pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the President McCormack Podcast, brought to you by McCormack Foundation, Saxton Fund, ADP Lemco, and Professional Floor Systems. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast and keep up with Mark on Instagram @President McCormack.